1 Samuel chapters 13 and 14. Welcome again to another episode of Papa John's Scripture Notes. Papa John does this for his children and his children's future children and future posterity, extended family and friends that I've made along the way. 1 Samuel chapter 13 details King Saul's first major military blunder and the beginning of his downfall. Facing a massive Philistine threat, Saul panicked and disobeys God's command by performing a priestly sacrifice himself, and this resulted in Samuel's declaring that Saul's royal dynasty would not endure. And he's just beginning. I mean, we're just like verse 1 says, Saul reigned 1 year, and when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose 3,000 men, and it describes the size of his army. And it talks about a lot of Hebrew names that are difficult for Papa John to pronounce. But his son, Jonathan, has more courage than he has. But there's a reason the Israelites are afraid to fight. They're not prepared, and they're not being true to God's holiness code. Remember, God promised, I'll be your God. You be my people, I'll be your God. I'll fight your battles, your victories. I'll provide for you. I'll protect you, all of this. But why is it that they don't trust God? In fact, Saul shows a lot of lack of faith. Here they are waiting for the battle, and I'm skipping verse 7. Some of the Hebrews went over to Jordan, so some of his army is fleeing over the river to the land of Gad or Ga'ad and Gilead. And as for Saul, he's yet there in Gilgal, and all the people following him are trembling. So with the Philistine uprising and the Israelites panicking, Saul establishes a standing army of 3,000 men, while his son Jonathan, his younger, like the next generation seems to have more faith, successfully attacks a Philistine garrison at Giv'ah. Angered by the attack, the Philistines now amass a massive, superior army, and their technology is superior. Why? We're going to find out. Terrified, the Israelite tribes scatter, hide in caves, or out in desert, or they desert their post even. So, here he tarried 7 days, Saul, according to the time set by Samuel, the prophet. But Samuel came down to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. And Saul said, "Bring hither a burnt offering to me, a peace offering." And he offered the burnt offering. Do you realize what Saul did wrong here? He's not the priest. He's not the prophet. He's the king. He's doing what he's not allowed to do. He's not set apart to do. Verse 10, and it came to pass as soon as he had made an end of the offering. If he just waited a little bit longer, right? As soon as he had made an end of the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him that he might salute him. And Samuel said, "What hast thou done?" And Saul said, "Because I saw that the people were scattered before me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. Therefore said I, the Philistines will come down upon me to Gilgal." So he's afraid that he's going to be attacked. So hurry, let's rush this thing. Let's get it done. and I have not made supplication unto Jehovah. I forced myself, therefore. Oh, how noble, right? And offered a burnt offering. But does he do it in faith? Does he do it in confidence? No, he did it out of fear. And he did something he was not set apart to do. Saul's failed his test, and subsequently he's now sinned, a great sin. Saul's disobedience, he disobeys in 2 ways. The prophet Samuel, who had instructed him to wait 7 days for a sacrifice to be made before battle, and the 7 days end, and because of that, the pressure had mounted within his mind, at least, and his troops' minds, because they're scattering. So Saul impatiently takes matters into his own hands and offers the burnt offering himself. An act strictly reserved for the Levitical priest. Samuel said to Saul, "Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of Jehovah thy Elohim, which he commanded thee. For now would Jehovah have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever." He was that close. The time it took to offer the sacrifice, if he'd waited just a little bit longer, God would have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. But now thy kingdom shall not continue. Jehovah hath sought him a man after his own heart. And remember that phrase. If you're not familiar with that phrase, this phrase is attached to a certain individual throughout the rest of the Bible. God, Jehovah, sought him a man after his own heart. And if you don't know who that is, you will know soon. The verse 14 ends with, "And Jehovah hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which Jehovah commanded thee." So Saul offered a sacrifice that he had no authority to offer because Samuel was late in arriving and the troops were scattering. Verses 13 through 15, let me read 15 first. "And Samuel arose and gat him up from Gilgal unto Gibeah or Givah, and Benjamin. And Saul numbered the people that were present with him, about 600 men. Everyone else had scattered." So Samuel's rebuke and prophecy of judgment, the confrontation comes just as Saul finishes the illegal sacrifice as Samuel arrives. Saul makes excuses, but Samuel condemns him for his foolishness and disobedience. God's verdict is explained as Samuel prophesies that Saul's dynasty is over. God will seek out a new king, a man after his own heart, to lead Israel. Samuel then leaves Saul, and Saul retreats to Gibeah with only a remnant of his army. Pretty cold and seems very harsh, but God will not be mocked. He will be served, and as we honor him, he honors us. The next verses, let me continue. 16, "Saul and Jonathan his son and the people that were present with him abode in Gibeah of Benjamin, but the Philistines encamped in Michmash. And the spoilers came out of the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies. One company turned unto the way that leadeth to Ophrah, unto the land of Shual. Another company turned away to Beit Choron, and another company turned to the way of the border that looked to the valley of Zeboim, towards the wilderness. Now there was no smiths found throughout the land." Now, why aren't there any smiths? And what is a smith? We're talking about blacksmith, okay? Why wouldn't they have smiths, shops set up all over to help make weapons and sharpen weapons? We're going to learn why. The government that's in charge is the Philistines. Israel is a conquered land in their promised land, their prophesied promised land, and they're conquered. They're playing by the rules just to keep the peace, just to get along, and they're allowing these other nations to rule over them. So for the Philistines said, lest the Hebrews make them swords or spears. So to sharpen every man his even his farm tools, his axe and his mattocks, they had to go to the government authorized sharpening shops. So it came to pass in the day of battle that there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people that were with Saul or Jonathan, but with Saul and with Jonathan. So only 2 men have swords that are sharp. I don't think we're prepared for war, especially if we're not going to live God's ways and we can't count on his strength. And the garrisons of the Philistines went out to the passage of Michmash. So the Philistines are now, the raids, they're taking advantage of Israel's situation. The threat there is seen as they send out their raiding parties to ravage the land, and suddenly we see a technology gap. Wow, here's your sign. You should have saw this long before. The text highlights a significant vulnerability. There are no blacksmiths permitted in Israel by the Philistines. The Israelites are completely dependent on the Philistines to sharpen even basic agricultural tools like axes, sickles, and plowshares. Consequently, only Saul and Jonathan have actual swords and spears. Symbolically, they were allowed to have, I suppose, a weapon, and the rest could only have farm instruments. Incredible. Because I see in our day, similar challenges. It's just interesting to see history repeat itself and how, it's just interesting. Let's continue. Stay focused. Chapter 14 tells a story of two distinct leaders, Prince Jonathan, who demonstrates bold, courageous faith in God to see a miraculous military victory, and his father, King Saul, whose rash decisions, foolish oaths, and insecurity end up hindering his own army and almost executing his son. Growing up, I loved Jonathan because, hey, I'm John. Papa John grew up with that name. He was such an example of faith to me, and you're going to see why. Now it came to pass upon a day that Jonathan, the son of Saul, said unto the young man that bare his armor, so his armor bearer, Come and let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side. But he told not his father. And Saul tarried in the uttermost part of Gibeah, or Givah, under a pomegranate tree which is in Migron, and the people that were with him were about the same 600 men. And Ahijah, the son of Ekituv, and Ikavod's brother, the son of Pinchas, the son of Eli, Jehovah's priest in Shiloh, in Hebrew Shiloh, wearing an ephod, and the people knew not that Jonathan, and in Hebrew Jonathan is Yonatan was gone. So the priest and the 6 men and those named are just waiting for something to happen, but they're doing nothing. So verse 4, and between the passages by which Jonathan sought to go over unto the Philistine garrison, there was a sharp rock on one side and a sharp rock on the other side, and the name of the one rock was Bozez, and the name of the other was Seneh. Verse 5, the forefront of the one was situate northward over against Michmash, and the other southward against Gibeah. So here's a rendition of them coming up on the garrison, who has the advantage of the high ground. They're a trained army. They know the advantage to always have the high ground. And Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, Come and let us go over to the garrison of the uncircumcised. It may be that Jehovah will work for us, for there is no restraint to Jehovah to save by many or by few. What a declaration of faith by this young Jonathan. As a boy, I loved his faith and his courage. Verse 7, and his armbearer said unto him, Do all that is in thine heart, turn thee, behold, I am with thee according to thy heart. So he joins in the faith of Jonathan. Then said Jonathan, Behold, we will pass over unto these men, and we will discover ourselves unto them. So we're going to make sure they see us coming. And if they thus say, Tarry until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place and will not go up against them. But if they say, Come up unto us, that we will go up, for Jehovah hath delivered them into our hands, and this shall be a sign unto us. So he's just going to wait and see how this plays out. And even taunting, because I can see trained soldiers saying, Come up unto us. And he's going to, Jonathan's determined that will be our sign, even if they say it taunting us. Verse 11, both of them discovered themselves unto the garrison, so they purposely allowed themselves to be seen of the Philistines. And the Philistines said, what are they going to say? Behold, the Hebrews come forth out of the holes where they had hid themselves. And the men of the garrison answered Jonathan and said, and his armor bearer, and said, Come up to us, and we will show you a thing. And Jonathan said unto his armor bearer, Come after me, for Jehovah hath delivered them into the hand of Israel. Oh my goodness, the courage of the youth. And here they come, and the men are taunting them, and they come up without fear. And Jonathan climbed up upon his hands and upon his feet, and his armor bearer after him, and they fell upon Jonathan. So they are attacked, and his armor bearer slew after him. And that first slaughter which Jonathan and his armor bearer made was about 20 men within. It was a half acre of land, which a yoke of oxen might plow. So they're giving us even the description of the land that they've conquered, and they've killed 20 of these soldiers of the Philistines. So verse 15, and there was trembling in the host in the field among all the people, and the garrison and the spoilers they also trembled. So the spoilers, those that have been out attacking and harassing the Israelites, they're also trembling. And the earth quaked, so it was a very great trembling. And the watchmen of Saul and Gibeah and of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude melted away, and they went on beating down one another. So now they're attacking each other. Then said Saul unto the people that were with him, Number now, and see who is gone from us. And when they had numbered, so they're doing roll call, behold, Jonathan and his arm bearer were not there. They missed roll call. And Saul said unto Ahijah, Bring hither the ark of Elohim. Why is it they always want the ark with them? They were lucky to get it back only through God's grace. Remember the two cows, the mother cows that brought it straight back to the Israelites? That's the previous episode of one of the previous episodes of Papa John's. Pretty fascinating. Having milked cows, having grown up, Papa John, I milked cows. You don't separate a mother cow from her child, from her calf. So when the Philistines released the ark with the two mother cows, leaving it to chance, but they were putting it not to chance. They were stacking the deck in their favor. There's no way these cows are going to go straight back to Israel. But if they do, we'll know God's hand in it. And we watched it happen as we read through that in the previous episodes. For the ark of Elohim at that time was with the children of Israel, right? Because God made a mother cow mooing all the way in protest, bring the ark right back to the Israelites. Amazing. Verse 19, And when it came to pass, while Saul talked unto the priest, that the noise that was in the host of the Philistines went on and increased. And Saul said unto the priest, Withdraw thine hand. And Saul and all the people that were with him assembled themselves, and they came to the battle. And behold, every man's sword was against his fellow. And there was a very great discomfiture. Wow, what a word. Moreover, the Hebrews that were with the Philistines before that time, which went up with them into the camp from the country round about, even they also turned to be with Israelites that were with Saul and Jonathan. So likewise, all the men of Israel who had hid themselves in the mount of Ephraim, in the mount of Ephraim, when they heard that the Philistines fled, even they also followed hard after them in the battle. So suddenly everyone has courage. Verse 23, So Yehovah saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over unto Beth-aven. So frustrated that King Saul and his 600 soldiers were passively hiding in the caves of Gibeah, his son Jonathan decides to take action. Accompanied only by his armor bearer, and without telling his father, he set out to attack a heavily fortified Philistine outpost. Jonathan famously reasons that nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. He sets up a sign. If the Philistines tell us to come up and fight, it will be God's confirmation that he will deliver them. And the Philistines mockingly invite them up, and the two men scramble up the rocky cliff, defeating 20 Philistine soldiers. Their bold strike causes absolute panic, triggering an earthquake. I think God was behind the earthquake, wouldn't you agree? And a massive rout among the Philistine camp. And the men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had adjured the people, saying, so here he had told the people, Cursed be the man that eateth any food until evening. And this is when they're supposed to have strength to fight, right? That I may be avenged of mine enemies. So none of the people tasted any food. I don't think instigating a fast when you need your physical strength is very inspired. Verse 25, And all they of the land came to a wood, and there was honey upon the ground. And when the people were coming to the wood, behold, the honey dropped. But no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. And you know how sticky honey is, right? In fact, Papa John, my dad had beehives growing up. I've worked with bees prior to in the Southwest here in Arizona. Eventually, it became more difficult to work with bees because when I did it as a boy, they were domestic American bees, but now they're Africanized. And there's a whole story on how that happened. And working with bees is much more dangerous than when I was a boy. But Jonathan heard not when his father charged the people. Why? Because he was out there fighting the Philistines secretly with his arm bearer, right? So he didn't know about this prohibition against eating. He didn't know about that oath. Wherefore he put forth the end of his rod that was in his hand and dipped into the honeycomb and put his hand to his mouth, and his eyes were enlightened. As you would. That's like a sugar rush, right? Then answered one of the people and said, Thy father straitly charged the people with an oath, saying, Cursed be the man that eateth any food this day. And the people were faint. No wonder they were hiding in the caves. Then said Jonathan, My father had troubled the land. See, I pray you, how mine eyes have been enlightened, because I have tasted a little of this honey. How much more, if haply the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies which they found? For there not been now a much greater slaughter among the Philistines. And they smote the Philistines that day of Michmash to Ayalon, and the people were very faint. And the people flew upon the spoil, and took sheep and oxen and calves, and slew them on the ground, and the people did eat with the blood. So they're so famished that even as they have this victory, and they decide, okay, time to eat, we're going to eat. But they eat it with the blood, and that's actually a violation of the kosher laws that we learned about in Leviticus and such. So then they told Saul, saying, Behold, the people sinned against Jehovah in that they ate with blood. And he said, Ye have transgressed. Roll a great stone onto me this day. Oh, he's so dramatic. He's the biggest man in Israel, stands head and shoulders above anyone else. And he's acting like, I'll just roll a stone upon me this day. Oh my goodness. Verse 34, And Saul said, Disperse yourselves among the people, and say unto them, Bring me hither every man his oxen, every man his sheep, and slay them here, and eat, and sin not against Jehovah in eating with blood. And all the people brought every man his ox with him that night, and slew them there. And Saul built an altar unto Jehovah. The same was the first altar that he built unto Jehovah. So just to help us understand some of this Old English, as the panic ensues, Saul realizes a battle is happening and discovers Jonathan and his armor bearer are missing. Eager to control the situation and look authoritative, Saul places the entire army under a strict and foolish oath. Cursed is the man who eats any food until evening, so that I may avenge myself on my enemies. That oath backfires. The exhausted and famished troops are unable to fight effectively. And unawares of his father's curse/oath, Jonathan stumbles across some wild honey and eats it, instantly feeling energized. Later, when the exhausted men finally defeat the Philistines, they are so starved that they slaughter the captured animals and eat them with the blood still in them, which is direct violation to the law of Moses. So let's continue. Verse 36, And Saul said, Let us go down after the Philistines by night and spoil them until the morning light, and let us not leave a man of them. And they said, Do whatsoever seemeth thee good. Then said the priest, Let us draw near hither unto Elohim. And Saul asked counsel of Elohim, Shall I go down after the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into the hand of Israel? But he answered him not that day. God's not speaking to him. And Saul is trying to compensate. Even the priests are trying to compensate for God's silence. Verse 38, And Saul said, Draw ye near hither, all the chief of the people, and know and see wherein this sin hath been this day. So now he's accusing those that are with him of having sinned. The prophet told him what he had done already, right? Verse 39, For as Jehovah liveth, which saveth Israel, though it be in Jonathan my son, he shall surely die. For there was not a man among all the people that answered him. And he said unto all of Israel, Be ye on one side, and I and Jonathan my son will be on the other side. And the people said unto Saul, Do what seemeth good unto thee. Therefore Saul said unto Jehovah, Elohim of Israel, Give a perfect lot. And Saul and Jonathan were taken, but the people escaped. And Saul said, Cast lots between me and Jonathan, my son. And Jonathan was taken. Then Saul said to Jonathan, Tell me what thou hast done. And Jonathan told him, and said, I did but taste a little honey with the end of the rod that was in mine hand, and lo, I must die? And Saul answered, Elohim do so, and more also, for thou shalt surely die. Jonathan, I don't think this king understands God or his ways, and he's guessing as a leader when he should, with confidence, be able to rely upon God if he was living the holiness code, if he wasn't trying to compensate, if he would stay in his own lane As king, you have been set apart to do certain things, but now you're not only acting out as a priest would and offering sacrifice, you're delegating the motives of others, and he's just doing a terrible job. I think you would agree. And the people said unto Saul, Shall Jonathan die, who hath wrought this great salvation in Israel? Elohim forbid, God forbid. That's what Paul used to say all the time. When we get to the New Testament and Paul, his favorite thing all the time is God forbid. After every point he makes, I love Paul. Let's stay here. Papa John's getting off track here. All right. As Jehovah liveth, there shall not one hair of his head fall to the ground, for he hath wrought with Elohim this day. So the people rescued Jonathan, that he died not. From his own father, can you imagine? Then Saul went up from following the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place. So it looks like they're not going to have a battle after all. Saul noticed the men breaking the dietary law and commands a large stone to be rolled over so that they can slaughter the animals properly. Then he asked, so they were going to build an altar. Okay, I'd forgotten that point. Papa John is hard to remember. That's why I love my Papa John notes. I write things down and forget about them, and then come along and read them again and rediscover them. I hope that's the benefit for my children as they read through these things. I just want us to have an ability to read the scriptures in a way that they make more sense and we get past the ink on the page. I say that all the time. He then asked the priests that if they would pursue the Philistines through the night, but God remained silent. Saul assumes that there's a sin in the camp and demands to know who broke his oath, swearing that even if it's his own son, Jonathan, the transgressor must die. And when the lot falls on Jonathan, he admits to eating the honey. Saul declares he will put Jonathan to death. However, the army strongly intervenes, asserting that Jonathan is the Hebrew who brought about this great salvation, which actually we understand it was the victory, not the salvation. So I'm going to make a correction there. After this episode, you'll see Papa John correct that scripture. Because of Nehemiah, he taught us that it was the victory for Israel in the Hebrew, not salvation for Israel. It was the victory for Israel. In the context, we're talking about the battle of the day, not talking about the salvation of Israel as a whole. And they refused to let Saul execute him. The people effectively rescued Jonathan from his own father's wrath. Verse 47, so Saul took the kingdom over Israel and fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab, against the children of Ammon, against Edom, and against the kings of Zavah, and against the Philistines. Whithersoever he turned himself, he vexed them. So they're going after them over time. I'm sure this is over months, perhaps years. It's hard to say. Verse 48, and he gathered an host and smote the Amalekites and delivered Israel out of the hands of them that spoiled them. Now the sons of Saul were Jonathan and Yeshvi and Malchi-Shua, and the names of his two daughters were these. The name of the firstborn was Meirav, and the name of the younger daughter was Michal, similar to Michael, Michal. And the name of Saul's wife was Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz. Wow, I love these names. And the name of the captain of his host, the captain over his armies, was we say Abner, but it was Avner, the son of Ner, Saul's or Shaul's uncle. And Kish was the father of Saul, Ner the father of Abner, and the son of Avinel. And we're done with this episode. One more verse. And there was sore war against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he took him unto him. So the king keeps recruiting and trying to beat the Philistines, but God has left him. And we're going to learn in the following chapters who God ends up choosing. And ultimately, they will not be free from the their rulers of the Philistines that rule over them, that are stronger to them until King David. The chapter concludes with the summary of Saul's overall kingship, which we just went through. It details his military successes against various enemies, outlines his immediate family members, and notes his habit of recruiting the strongest and bravest men that he could find into his army. which Samuel had warned the Israelites, if you get a king, your children will serve the king and die serving the king. Oh, these are not the good days of Israel and their history, but it's good for us to remember. And Papa John, some chapters have more to share than others, and that's okay. I get a delight out of restoring God's name. Someday, you might wonder why it's so important to me. If you ever have an experience with the Father and you understand the power of his divine name and how his only begotten Son in the New Testament name points to the Father's name. When you figure that out, like myself, like Papa John, you will miss the Old Testament when we start reading the New Testament and the power and the clarity of when the name is invoked, the divine name is invoked and spoken, long before there was a prohibition or a conspiracy of silence against the name. We will miss the New Testament, the Old Testament, because it's so clear, and it's part of the reason why I'm doing this Papa John's Scripture Notes project, beginning with the Old Testament, because if we don't pick up on the power of the divine name and the reason we do things for and in behalf of the name of God, it's lost to us, especially in the rest of Scripture. From the New Testament, for the rest of my Christian friends who believe in the Bible, the Old Testament, New Testament, you'll notice the difference when you get to the New Testament, but you'll also see that it's not as clear in the Book of Mormon or in the Pearl of Great Price, and not even in the Pearl of Great Price. This is a gift that keeps on giving. If we can get used to using and recognizing the divine name, it will stay with us throughout throughout the canon of Scripture. And I hope that's clear by the time we get to the end of the Old Testament. And with that, the rest can wait till the next episode. I look forward to talking with each of you again soon.